Hey guys, this is Josh with TheDeveloperDepot.com, and this video is a tutorial video on how to make an app from scratch. This app will be a color matching app. The end product will look just like this. The main goal is to line up the side of the wheel that matches the color of the ball that's dropping, and you do this by tapping the right number of times to line it up. So for that yellow one I tap 3 times, this one I'm just going to tap once, 3 times again, 3 times for the green one, and so on. And so it's a pretty simple game, but it's also pretty challenging once it speeds up and everything. This concept has actually been fairly popular on the App Store by multiple publishers. They all have their slight original twist, but it's the basic concept that this is based off of. One of which is called Impossible Rush, I think, is the latest one. And so this is what the product of this tutorial will produce. So without further ado, let's get started and create this from scratch. We're going to create a new project in GameSalad. Let me adjust it to the camera size. And we're going to change the platform to iPad Portrait, because it's a lot easier to scale down from iPad to iPhone and smaller screens than it is to scale up from smaller screens to bigger screens. So I'm going to start with the big screen iPad Portrait. We're going to create our first actor, going to the Actors tab, hitting this plus button on the bottom left. And that will create an actor up here. We're going to name it Wheel. And this will be our color wheel. Now before we go further, I'm going to import the images that you saw in the final product. These images you can actually download for free. There's a link below. These are free to use. You can use these, but I would also encourage you to create your own art and add an original twist to the end product of this app, as cloning is frowned upon by the developer community and it's just not cool. So anyways, going into this actor, as you see, I imported these images. We're going to drag the wheel image right into here, and we're going to change its size from 100 by 100 to 200 by 200. We want this wheel to rotate when the mouse button is tapped or when the screen's tapped, and so to do that we're going to have to go through a few steps. So to start, make a self attribute down here, clicking the plus button, make it a real attribute, and we're going to name this current rotation. Now we're going to make a rule up here. We're going to make the condition when mouse button is down, then go down here in behaviors, change attribute, self rotation or current rotation that we just made, change that to the exact same thing, self current rotation plus 90. So we're going to change its rotation by 90 degrees. But that just changes this self attribute that's not tied to anything. So we're going to create a rule that's constantly checking a condition, and that is when attribute self actual rotation right here. So self rotation does not equal current rotation, then we know that it needs to rotate to the current rotation. So we're going to go down here in behaviors and drag in a rotate to angle behavior, and that angle will be we want it to rotate to the self current rotation, but we want to make this within angle format, so we're going to put a %sign and then 360. And that'll keep it so it's always within an angle value. So hit the check mark there. And the speed we're going to make 700. We're going to say run to completion. But now then we're going to change it to relative to scene. And now our problem is this rule only checks once. So we want it to be constantly checking. So we're going to drag in a timer here. We're going to say every 0 seconds. So it's really just constantly checking and making sure the rotation is right. So every 0 seconds, make sure that the actual rotation equals the attribute, the self attribute that we made, the current rotation, which is the rotation it should be at. So now let's drag this actor into the scene and see if it works. So going into the scene, we drag the wheel in, and we might as well line it up while we're at it. We want it directly in the middle, and so we know that the width of an iPad portrait is 768, so half of that will be 384. So we change the X position to 384. The Y position doesn't matter as much. We'll change that to 255. Hit the back button, and hopefully this will rotate when we click. So hit the preview, click, and as you can see, it does rotate just like we want it to. So now going back, we are now going to create a ball actor. So going down here, click the plus button again, create an actor. We're going to name it ball, and double click on that actor. The size will be 40 by 40, and we're just going to drag in our images that we already loaded up here. We'll just drag the first red one. And now we're going to create a self attribute. We're going to name it, it's going to be a real attribute. We're going to name it current color. And so when this ball spawns, we want it to randomly pick between the 4 different colors. So we're going to do that by going into behaviors. We're going to drag in a change attribute behavior. We're going to say change attribute current color, the attribute we just created, to, we're going to insert a function. It's going to be a random function. The minimum is going to be 1, and the maximum is going to be 4. So it's going to randomly choose between 1, 2, 3, and 4. And so now we're going to go down, we're going to drag in another change attribute. And as you can see, going into these images, I just named them by numbers. And that makes it really easy to change their image. So I go into change attribute, go into the ball, I go into image, double click on image, so change self.image, then I just say to current color. And so if the current color is 1 right here in the game, then it's going to change its image to the 1 image, the image that's named 1. So that works really well. Now we need the ball to drop at a certain speed. So we're going to go in behaviors and drag a move behavior. And we're going to make the direction that it's moving down, so that's 270. And the speed that it's moving, 150. And actually, we're going to tie the speed to a game attribute. That way you can change the ball speed within the game so you can slowly make it speed up. So go into scene, go into attributes, and we're going to create a game attribute right here. Hit the plus button, make it a real attribute, and we're going to call it ball speed. And right now we're going to make that 150. But by tying this in with the ball movement, then you can change that attribute and it'll change the ball speed. So we'll do that by clicking the speed here, go into game, and tie it right in with the attribute we just created. That way it'll be dropping at that speed that you tie in, and you can tie in any number, make it go any speed you'd like. Now we want to make it when the ball collides with the wheel, depending on if the colors lined up correctly or not, the game gives you a point or resets. So in order to do that, we need the ball to know what the current color of the wheel is. So we're going to go into scene and create a game attribute. It's going to be a real attribute again. And we're going to name it color. Now we're going to go into our wheel attribute, or actor, sorry. And this wheel will tell the whole game what color it's currently rotated to. So to do that, we're going to drag a change attribute into the first rule we created already. We're going to say change game.color, the attribute we just created. And we're going to change that to current rotation in parentheses. So we go down here to its self attribute, wheel current rotation. We're going to put this in parentheses. and it's to the percent of 360 divided by 90 plus 1. Now that's going to give us the current color that it's on. It's finding the angle and dividing it by 90 because the angles are split up in 90 degrees. And without this plus 1, being on the color red would give us a value of 0. And being on green would give us the value of 1. So by doing plus 1, it starts red as 1, green as 2, yellow as 3, and blue as 4. So we're going to hit the plus button here, or check mark, and we're going to go back to the ball actor. And now that the ball knows what color it's currently on, we can make it so that create a rule, when the ball overlaps or collides with actor of type wheel, make another condition, if attribute self current color, so the ball's current color, if it equals the game color, which is the wheel's current color, then we'll say destroy, because when the ball hits the color, it destroys. And now we're going to hold alternate and drag this rule. We're going to copy it, and it's going to be the exact opposite of what we did. When it overlaps or collides with the wheel, if the color does not equal the wheel color, then we're going to make it game over. And also up here we want to add plus 1 to the score when it lines up with the right color. So we're going to make 2 game attributes. Go into scene again, go into attributes, hit the plus button, make it a reel, hit the plus button again for another reel attribute. And the first one we're going to name score, and actually delete this last attribute. It's actually going to be a Boolean, a true or false attribute. And this is going to be game over. So it's going to start as game over false, of course, because you start the game where it's not game over. But going back, hit the back button, go into the ball. When it lines up with the right color, we say change attribute before it destroys. So make sure you drag the change attribute above the destroy. Change attribute game score to game score plus 1. So that takes the current score already and just adds 1 to it. And now going down into here and you can actually name your rules up here. We'll say match, and then down here game over. So in game over we say change attribute game over to true. Now you've probably noticed that we haven't implemented the balls into the scene yet, so there's no way for them to come into the scene. So we're going to do that now. We're going to go and create another actor to spawn the balls. You actually don't really need another actor. You could drag in spawn behaviors in the wheel or whatever, but just to make things less cluttered, we're going to make a whole different actor. So we're going to name it spawner. And we're gonna go inside. We're gonna color it neon green or whatever. You're not actually gonna see this in the game, but it's just we're gonna put this off to the side in the scene. But it's good to have it a bright color so you don't forget it's there. So dragging the spawner into the scene, we're gonna make sure it's not touching the black so it won't be actually visible. And now we're gonna go inside that actor, and we're gonna drag a spawn actor. We're going to spawn actor ball. We're going to do direction relative to scene and coordinates relative to scene. Now we know we want the balls to be spawned directly in the center of the x-axis. So it'll line right up with the wheel. So we know already that the center is 384. Now for the y, we know that the height of an iPad portrait is 1024 pixels high. So we want the ball to spawn above that. So it's not visible when it spawns, but quickly drops into visibility. So we're going to make that 1084, just directly above the visibility of the screen. And now we need a timer to say how often it spawns. So you drag in a timer behavior, dragging the actor into that. Every And actually, let's tie another game attribute to this so you can change the rate that it spawns the balls during the game. So going into the scene, create another game attribute, make it a reel, and it's going to say spawn rate. We're going to name it that. And for now, we're going to make it every 3 seconds. So going back into the spawner actor, we're going to plug it right in here. Game.spawnRate. Hit the check mark. And now if we hit the preview, every 3 seconds it should spawn a ball. So, and after 3 seconds, bam, there's a ball. And you can see everything works. It's random colored. When you get the right color, then it destroys the ball. And it adds +1 to the score, but we haven't displayed the score yet. And also, as you see right now, when it collides with the wrong color, nothing happens. It changed the game attribute, the game over attribute to true, but we haven't caused that value to do anything when it is true. So now we need to make it so it actually is game over when it's game over. To do that, right here in the spawn actor, we're going to create another rule. We're going to make the condition when attribute game.gameover is true, then we're going to reset the game. But to add a little bit of effect, we're going to actually make a flash, as you saw in the end product where the screen goes white and then it resets the game. So to do that, we're going to drag in a timer here, and we're going to say after 0.3 seconds, then reset the game. And now we're going to create another actor, and it's going to be the flash actor. So we're going to hit the plus button, name it flash, go inside, and change the size to the size of the iPad portrait screen, which width is 768 and height is 1024. And now we're going to drag that into the scene. Actually, before we do that, we might as well change the color alpha to 0, which makes it invisible. And then we're going to create a rule when attribute game over is true, then we're going to interpolate. So change over a period of time the color alpha to 1. So we're going to change it back to visible over a duration of 0.2 seconds. And this will cause a flash effect. So let's drag this actor into the scene. Drag the flash right in there. We're going to line it up directly in the center, so double click on it. Go to the position, change the X to 384 and the Y to the middle, which half of 1024 is 512. And that should give us our flash effect. Before we test it, let's finish this off and go into the scene. Change the color. You can leave it to black, or you can even put in your own background image. But right now, I think it's more appealing a darker gray around there. And that's totally up to you, whatever floats your goat. So, going back into the Actors tab, going to Scene, we're going to create a Display Score Actor. So hit the plus button, name it Score Display. Go inside, size we're going to leave. Color, we're going to make it invisible, actually, because we don't want the square to be visible. We want the score text to be visible. So to do that, we're going to drag a display text behavior into the actor. And we're going to make it display text, go inside, and make it display the text game.score. Hit the check mark, and the X coordinates, we want it directly in the middle, like so. The size will make bigger to 60 font size. And we're going to change the color to a darker gray so it blends a little bit better with the background, but not as dark or darker than the background. We want it slightly lighter than the background. So that's good. And so now let's drag the display into the scene. Drag it around. That seems like a pretty good height. And we're going to line it up directly in the middle. position it to 384, and we'll just even this out to 910, and that should do it. Before we hit the preview to view the final product, let's do a little bit of layering where it looks a little bit more appealing. So go into the scene tab up here, hit layers, go into the background, and we're going to make the flash the top. So when it the top of the layer, so when it flashes, it covers everything. Because if we had just left it before, the score display would have been on top of that and it would have looked funny. So, and we want the wheel to be right underneath the flash so that the balls will go slightly behind the wheel, so instead of in front. Alright guys, that's the end of this tutorial. Your app has been created. So let's hit preview and view the final product. It should work perfectly. So lining up the yellow, ding, we get a point. Lining up the red, another point. Oh yeah. And you can click as many times, line it up to the yellow again, blue. Let's try to lose here on purpose. See the flash, and flash resets the game. That's all there is to it. Thank you so much for watching this tutorial. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope it was some use to you guys. If you liked it, please subscribe to this YouTube channel because there's more tutorials coming soon. Also, go ahead and hit the like button as well. And be sure to check out some of our other content at TheDeveloperDepot.com, and you can actually download there the project file to this template for free to compare it with the code you came up with during this tutorial if you'd like. Or if you think you might have missed some small details, you can compare it directly to the actual project file. So yeah, that's it. I hope you guys have an awesome day.